I'm in the Blue Ridge Mountains at Humpback Rocks area. This is about mile marker 8 on the Blue Ridge Parkway. And this is the Humpback Rocks picnic area. It's just south of the Humpback Rocks hiking area. There's my little red car. And I'm going to head down here to the bottom of this little loop and look for the connector that will take me to the Appalachian Trail. And then I'm going to head north on the Appalachian Trail for a couple miles looking for an old military aircraft wreck, a T-28, which is a trainer aircraft, crashed sometime back in the 1960s. The elevation here is 3,040 feet. Four-tenths of a mile into my hike. The elevation here is 3,200 feet. That's where I came from. The Blue Blaze Trail comes up from the picnic area where I parked. And when you come up, the sun's going to be in the camera here, but when you come up, you'll see this stuff right here. This is the intersection with the Appalachian Trail. That way heads southbound. We're going to go this way to the north. Eight-tenths of a mile into my hike. The elevation here is 3,290. And still hiking on the AT. That's where I came from. And I just thought I'd point this out. See this stacked stone wall here? I've been following this pretty much ever since I left the parking area, the picnic area. So that's 8/10 of a mile so far, and it's heading on up the hill there as far as I can see. So this was obviously the edge of somebody's large tract of land. Dry stacked stone. Whew, out of breath. 1.1 miles into my hike. The elevation here is 3,520. Here's where I came from. I'm still on the AT, coming up from lower elevations. And here's an overlook. Over there is the resort, Wintergreen Resort. There's a whole bunch of little cabins and houses to rent out and stuff, and you can see the ski slopes, which is the only thing that's got snow on it at the moment. Zoom in a little bit. See that? Over there is the buildings and so forth. So I think there might be another little overlook up here just a little higher. I'll take some more stills, and then I'm going to continue on towards the plane wreck if I can find it. Now I'm up on the higher viewpoint. It's looking to the west. See, the elevation here is about 35, 30. There's Wintergreen Resort. And down there in the valley, that's the Rockfish Valley. And I'm going to continue on to the north this way along the AT. Maybe you can see the white blazes over there on the rocks. And we'll see if we can find this old aircraft. .4 miles into my hike. The elevation here is 35-20. Been knocking along fairly constant elevation. And the Appalachian Trail is over there. I just stepped off of it for a minute. I'm just going to do a 360 here to show you some nice camping spots up here. Look at this one. It's flat. In the summertime, you'd be under the trees. Over there I see some pine trees. A little bit of a hill over there. This is dry camping though. There's no water up here. And over there's the Appalachian Trail. I've still got another about a quarter of a mile supposedly to this aircraft wreck. Okay, so there's your 360. So I'll mark this spot. This is a pretty nice little spot up here. And let's see, it's kind of high up though. It's 3,520 feet. So it'll get cold and windy up here in the wintertime. .9 miles into my hike. The elevation here is 3380, and I'm bushwhacking. I came from way up there. I never did see a log across the trail with a step cut into it, but just judging from, but I did have one person published a set of coordinates, which is what I'm going by. And then there was a write-up that said if you come across a stone structure, go left. Well, I came down from there, and here's a stone structure, and if I hike on a straight bearing, I will be hiking to the left of this, so I might be on the right path. Two miles into my hike, the elevation here is 3340, and well, it turns out that the coordinates I got were accurate. So I'll publish those, and I'll also publish the coordinates of that stone, that building corner back there. That's where I came from. So that's probably a good way to get here, is to first hike to that building, and then turn left and hike on a bearing down to here, because I didn't see any trail or anything. But here it is. This is a North American T-28 trainer. It's a two-seater training aircraft. It had a fairly large radial engine in it, propeller driven. And the two Marines that were flying this were, they lost oil pressure in the engine. So no oil pressure means your engine is good for what, another minute or so? And these planes don't have ejection seats, so they had to open up the canopy and crawl out the top. Both of them bailed out successfully and lived to tell the story. That's how we know what happened. So there's quite a bit of wreckage still here. I see part of the engine sitting over there. Fuselage, here's the tail section. I think I see some wing stuff over there. So I'll take a bunch of still pictures, And I refined the coordinates just a little bit, but the ones that are out there published are accurate, so you can go by them. There's part of the fuselage. Wings laying over there. Another piece of the fuselage upside down. Part of the landing gear. Part of a wing. Big piece of a wing over there. And here's the engine. I think I count 9 cylinders. That's a 9-cylinder radial engine. That's what they lost oil pressure on. No engine means you're going down. Oh, back up on the AT, out of breath. That's where I came from, down there. So there was a write-up that said that there's a tree laying across the AT with a step cut in it. Well, that's got to be it right there. I don't know if that was cut into it or worn down, but anyway, there it is. So, depending on which way you're hiking, I'm hiking towards the north. So, for me, I turn right, and you head down in that direction and start looking for that corner of that stone building. It's down there a ways, and then you're going to have to, when you get down to there, turn to the left, and you'll be below that ridge there, hiking down in that direction, and it's about 300 or 400 feet in that direction is the old aircraft. Note to myself, I repositioned the trail turnoff point, the T-28 trail turnoff. I repositioned it to here. 2.6 miles into my hike. The elevation here is 3640. I'm at the summit of Humpback Mountain. Now, I don't think most people come up here other than to use the AT. The scenic overlooks and the rocks where people like to hike up to are a little bit north of here. But I'm up here at the summit because there's some historic benchmarks up here that date back into the 1800s. I'll explain more later when I put the video together, but over here is one of them. That's stamped Humpback reference mark number 1, 1933, and it's got an arrow pointing towards the actual survey monument, which is over here somewhere. So we'll look this way for that. But there's Humpback reference mark number 1. Okay, well, after reading the description, it looks like that's one of the original limestone posts. This is the eastern one. This is 7 feet to the east of the actual survey mark, and there's supposed to be an arrow pointing over here to the benchmark, which is buried in the ground at this point. Somebody chipped off the arrowhead, but you can see where it used to be, pointing that way. So 7 feet over there and then let's say this is the middle, and then 7 feet further is the western reference mark over there. I'll uncover that maybe. And then 7 feet to the north, there's supposed to be a copper bolt driven into this rock formation, but I don't see it. But I'm going to look around for that some more, and I'm also going to look around, look over here, uncover this, and see if I can find any more reference marks over here. I guess the original survey mark was limestone post buried in the ground and covered up so people wouldn't mess with it. Okay, well, that's the eastern limestone marker. I'm standing about where the benchmark is buried here, and there were some leaves covering up the copper bolt. So I'll get some pictures of that. There's the copper bolt. That's 7 feet north of the actual benchmark. .6 miles into my hike. The elevation here is 3,200 feet. And I'm back to my waypoint, Appalachian Trail 1, AT1. And this is where I'm gonna make a right-hand turn onto this blue trail. This is the connector back to the picnic area where my car is parked. That's where I came from, and that big fat mountain up there straight ahead is Humpback. That's where I came from. So we're gonna head off this way. This is a map of today's hike. The quadrangle name is Sharonda, 1967, and the main purpose of the hike was to go looking for the wreck of a military aircraft, a T-28 trainer. And while I was there, I also climbed to the summit of Humpback Mountain to look around for some old historic benchmarks that are up there. This is the Blue Ridge Parkway. Mile 0 is up here, and you come on down and you go past mile 8. Between mile 8 and mile 9 is this Humpback Rocks picnic area. Come in here and loop all the way down to the very bottom down here. You can park down here, and there's a blue blazed connector trail that comes over like this and intersects with the Appalachian Trail. This is the Appalachian Trail. I follow the Appalachian Trail north until I got to here. This is a rock outcropping that has a view over here. Down this way a couple of miles is the Wintergreen Resort. So I got some shots of that. Then I continued on northbound on the AT to a point, and I wasn't real sure where this point was. I had a set of coordinates for the actual wreck, but I wasn't totally confident that they were accurate. But anyway, based on that, I decided to, at a certain point here, I jumped off the AT and started bushwhacking down. I got partially down here and I found the corner of a stone building, and one of the write-ups had said if you come across a stone building, go left, which is what I did, and found the wreck here. It was a North American T-28 trainer, so it's a 2-seat trainer. This one was Marine Corps. It has a large radial engine powering it. And the two pilots that were in the plane, they lost oil pressure. And it's a single engine aircraft, so they had to bail out. And they both successfully bailed out and lived to tell the story. So that's how we know what happened to this airplane. The crash was on May 1st, 1964. So I got a bunch of pictures of that. There's a lot of metal laying around down there, and also the engine's still there, embedded in the ground. Came back up to here, and then I was so close to the summit of Humpback, I decided to continue on to the north and came up here because there's a bunch of historic benchmarks up here on Humpback Mountain. Looked around for them, got a few pictures. And I included some pictures from a hike about 10 years ago where I found a few more of them. Some of the ones I found 10 years ago are buried, and I didn't have like a hand trowel or anything to really find them with. Came back here, back to my car like that. Now, I'll just show you a couple things about these benchmarks. They're actually kind of interesting to me anyway. Back in 1807, President Jefferson signed an act to provide for surveying the coast of the United States. They needed accurate coastal maps to try to cut down on the number of shipwrecks that they were having, loss of life, loss of property, etc. So they decided to go ahead and do this survey. Now it ran from Calais, Maine, all the way down to New Orleans, Louisiana. They did, of course that's 1807, 1812 was a war, so nothing happened. Then they had to travel to England to buy the optical instruments to do the survey. They started in 1816 with a survey of New York Harbor, and then from 1833 to 1898, which is a long time, like 60 years, the rest of the field work was performed. And then in 1902, they published the results. Now, this Humpback Mountain where I went on this hike, that summit was surveyed in 1875. This diagram came out of the book that was published in 1902. This one's dated 1901, but this shows some of the ones that I've hiked to in Virginia. There's Bull Run Mountain, Mount Marshall, that's in Shenandoah National Park. Fork Mountain, that's in Shenandoah. And then Humpback is south of Shenandoah Park. It's along the Blue Ridge Parkway on Humpback Mountain. And then so on down towards Louisiana. And you can see what they did when they created these points. That allowed them to draw these triangles. And then you start using trigonometry to measure the angles and the lengths of these triangles. And once you know these positions of these points, then you can come out here, survey your way out to the coast of the United States, and draw accurate maps. So that's the reason they did all this stuff. Ended up being 5.1 miles at a total ascent of 1,141 feet. And that was the hike for today.